You want Philly?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sanders patiently running. Sanders good cut. And another block. Sanders still going inside the 40.
NFC East champs, divisional champs, NFC champs, and world champs.
And welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour. My name is Connor. I am your host this evening. Of course, LJ is not here. As we were talking about before we came on, he is celebrating Black Friday and shopping lots. So I am joined for the second time this season by Chris at Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. He is the leader of the Painted Lines crew, and the reason we as the Kelly Green Hour are here tonight. Chris, welcome back. How are things?
What is going on, gentlemen? Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Saturday evening. Hope everyone has a cocktail. Again, thanks for having me on, Connor. Let's talk shop. Let's talk some birds.
You missed Thanksgiving by about a month for me, but yes, happy Thanksgiving to the two of you. And joining us, he was with us for some mock drafts in the off season. It is Mitch at Mitchkovsky on Twitter. He does Philly Talk with MK, and he's a co-founder of the Hardcore Sports Network. Mitch, I know you're feeling really good right now, so.
Dude, I haven't felt this. Oh my God. Michigan, bro. First time since 2000 that we beat Ohio State in Columbus. Like, I'm on cloud nine. Can we just get started because I can talk about this all day?
That is, I agree. Make sure you follow the Kelly Green Hour on Twitter at the Kelly Green Hour, and make sure you follow. LJ's got this down to a science, but make sure you follow the Painted Lines and Edge of Philly Sports. It's pretty much TPL, the Painted Lines, EOP, or Edge of Philly Sports, wherever you are looking on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. So make sure you find everybody there and follow all of them and like and subscribe to all of them. I wanted to start off the episode by talking. I wanted your guys' opinions on a couple things that just came out in the last 24 hours from Jeff McLean regarding a couple very interesting things. The first thing was the Eagles are having contract extension conversations with Jalen Hurts presently, and a potential deal reaching $50 million a year is on the table. It is being discussed, and Howie has voiced his concern about it and the impact of this contract on the roster and the team's ability to remain competitive in the future seasons. I'll start with you, Mitch. What are your thoughts on, based on what you've seen, based on, the Carson Wentz deal, based on circumstances with quarterbacks in the past and where the quarterback market is going, $50 million to Jalen Hurts and this type of contract extension? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I wasn't the biggest fan of Jalen Hurts in the beginning of the year. I wasn't, right? I was the guy who criticized him every move that he made, left and right. Was this good? Did he read the right route? Did he do this correctly? Well, he shut me up to the fact that I had to make a video saying that Jalen Hurts proved me wrong, and that video went nuts. So I'm just saying, he proved me wrong, but to get $50 million? I mean, come on. If we get that, we can't get these other pieces like a Gardner Johnson or all these other pieces. So if it were me, I would go to the 40 mil mark. 40, I wouldn't go that high to 50. But hey, he deserves his money. He does.
But I mean, and when you think about it, Chris, we think about it in regards to the cap goes up about $20 million a year. Understandably, we do 17 free agents. How many of those do we really need to bring back is a big question. And one of the biggest things is getting that franchise quarterback, that guy that you can trust. I get it. There's a lot of people who are very critical of him in regards to if he was in a different system, it wouldn't work. The point is he's in this system. He works in this system. He has earned his money in this system. So we know the cap is going to go up. We know how Howie rigs the contracts. The Carson Wentz deal, on paper, we sit there and we say, oh my gosh, it was terrible, but he was at a guaranteed money by year 3 out of 5 years. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's pretty close. I don't think it's that outlandish whatsoever. You look at Josh Allen, he got 46. You look at Jalen Hurts' age. You look at how he has gone from a quarterback you win with versus a quarterback you win because of. He has grown leaps and bounds, like Mitch has said, into that next tier category of a guy, just like we saw against the Colts. 8 rushing first downs, literally took this Eagles offense on his back. And this is exactly the conversation that I've been waiting for and, expecting. Because when it comes to Jalen Hurts, that's what this conversation is about. Is he worth that, mid 40s, possibly 50 million a year, price tag? And he has absolutely earned it. I mean, he's definitely squashed a lot of question marks when it comes to third downs, attacking downfield. There's still some questions when it comes to responding to pressure and the blitz and things like that, which will be interesting because we still haven't played the Giants and who blitz more than any NFL team in the league. And you got Parsons coming up again in the near future on Christmas Eve. So for me, I think it's worth. I think it's a hefty price tag, but this is the game, right? This is kind of exactly what we've been dissecting and assessing, and whether or not he deserves it. He absolutely does. I mean, you look at MVP voting, you look at kind of where Josh Allen is, Russell Wilson is, even Deshaun Watson has 46 million a year. Aaron Rodgers is at 42. This kind of goes to exactly what I said on a previous show about that Saints draft pick. Holy cow. Trade that pick, accumulate assets, repair some of these holes, because the Eagles have a ton of free agents coming off the team in the near future, especially on that defensive line and things like that. So it's an interesting talking point, but I don't think 50 million is that, in left field. I think it's pretty close.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that point. It's like these contracts, especially when you look at him in regards to where he is in MVP odds and his stature in that conversation. He's been in the top 5 of that conversation for the entirety of this season. You can't expect, especially when the cap is going up, that the most important position in football, the price tag would go down. And there's this belief that, you see where Patrick Mahomes is, like you said, you see where Josh Allen is, you see where Lamar Jackson wants to be. I think the real point is, working out a team-friendly deal where, yes, it's $50 million, but when you look at it and you really dissect it, Howie Roseman does his due diligence in ensuring that it doesn't completely ruin the team for the future. And yes, you did mention there are a ton of free agents coming up this offseason that now they have to figure out. Lucky thing is the Jalen Hurts contract wouldn't kick in until 2024 because he still has his final year of his rookie deal, I believe, next season. So that would help. But there is one other report that came out per Jeff McClain, and it was of the 17 expiring contracts for the Eagles this season. They are, quote, most likely to extend safety Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And I posted it and I said, of the impending free agents, 3 have been the biggest and most consistent game changers. That's James Bradberry, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, TJ Edwards. Obviously, I think there's one person in the conversation who said TJ Edwards or nothing. And then there's somebody else who said CJ and TJ, and that's all I want to hear about. So I'll start with you on this one, Chris. What are your thoughts on this? And I think the biggest thing that I feel here is James Bradberry's age and what he is going to earn plays against him. And it's one of the biggest reasons that week in and week out, me and LJ have talked about it and said he's likely not coming back, because it's kind of like Steven Nelson. Steve don't get me wrong. James Bradbury has probably earned double what Steven Nelson earned from last season. But at the end of the day, he's going to earn a lot more than we want to pay for a guy who's 28 going on 29. Whereas Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is 24. TJ Edwards has proven extremely good, and he's 26 years old. So those are two much younger players who can have a much bigger impact for the future and early and often over the next few years. So Chris, what are your thoughts?
You nailed it, man. This is more so about not being able to bring back Bradbury. That's how I see this. And you look at James Bradbury, who has been absolutely sensational opposite Darius Slay. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has had a really good year. He's up there, if not number one in interceptions this season. For me, I don't know. I would rather put that money into the offensive and defensive line. That's just my opinion. But we'll see. Safety is absolutely a priority position for the Philadelphia Eagles. The problem I come into is that's not a Howie move, right? Like Howie never invests that much money into this kind of position. So that's the one thing I'm a little curious or hesitant about this report. So we'll see.
And he bet on himself because he wanted to be paid as a safety, not as a nickel, which the New Orleans Saints wanted to pay him as a nickel because that's where they predominantly used him. And now he has proved himself in a position that is, a top nickel will earn $8 to $10 million. A top safety, suddenly you're earning the $16 to $20 million range. And we know Howie was in on a lot of the bidding that happened in the offseason with the safety position, but it just got out of his price range. So the report to me, I agree, is a little surprising because he wasn't willing to pay some of these other safeties. And now he's going to go out there and pay. Granted, he is 24 years old. He's younger than these other safeties that he went for in the offseason, but you're going to go out and you're probably going to make this guy the highest paid, or at least guaranteed a top 3 highest paid safety in the league with the way that he's playing. Mitch, what about you? What are your thoughts on this report?
It's got to be the age for me for James Bradbury. We're just going through a cycle right now with the cornerbacks in their age. We're just going in a cycle year after year after year. So I'm like, Bradbury, I don't know if I will pay him that kind of money. I want to give to Gardner-Johnson and TJ, both of those guys, or even just Gardner-Johnson. I'm fine with that. But do you take the Saints' first-round pick and draft a corner so that way we're good on corners for like a couple years? Would you guys do that or not?
I mean, we've talked about that. I think we've had Chris on where he's mentioned some names, and I know me and LJ have mentioned names. I would definitely be willing to go there. I don't think that you can go into the future in a year where you have 2 first-round picks and go ahead and sign a 28 going on 29-year-old cornerback. You're considering extending Darius Slay, who's a 32-year-old cornerback and only getting older as well. You have to choose at one point. One of these cornerback positions has to be addressed with a younger talent versus these prove-it talents that have proven they're worth a lot more money. And that's why, yes, I would agree. I think like at this point, if the pick stays closer to 10 than the top 5, corner makes more sense. If it ends up around, top 5, Chris, we've had you on the show where we've talked about it. This is likely an edge or defensive lineman coming off the board for the Philadelphia Eagles if this gets in the top 5. But Chris, what are your thoughts on Mitch's question about corner and addressing it, getting younger at it?
It's right there. I did a poll and got a ton of votes. It was edge number 1, cornerback number 2. So people absolutely see that cornerback is a huge need for this team moving forward. Obviously the biggest name is Keith Ringo out of Georgia. He's a CB1, but some guys that will absolutely be there, between 10 to like pick 32, depending on where the Eagles pick ends up. Joey Porter Jr. Is a really good cornerback out of Penn State. Christian Gonzalez is super underrated, out of Oregon. If you haven't heard of him yet, go check him out. 6'2", great measurables, big time playmaker. Cam Smith out of South Carolina, Devin Witherspoon and Clark Phillips. So it's a deep draft at cornerback, just like edge. I mean, I've counted at least when it comes to the edge position, like 6 to 8 guys that could go in the first round. At cornerback, you're probably looking at somewhere pretty close to that when it comes to first round, round 2. So it's going to be there's going to be guys there that will be available for the Eagles. It always depends on the board and how the board falls. So I think Keely Ringo is a tier among himself in this draft. Then there's a pretty steep drop. I think Joey Porter Jr. has a ton of length, thrives in press coverage, great athlete, great size, but he's just a notch underneath Ringo. For me personally, I would lean towards edge. Guys like Miles Murphy, Tyree Wilson, even on the interior, Brian Breezy, and obviously Jalen Carter, if they're lucky enough that he falls for whatever reason. But yes, I could see cornerback being need, but absolutely interior defensive line and edge are, for me personally, where I would go.
Absolutely. And like you said, it definitely depends on where the board falls and where these picks end up going. Because I know, and Ryan says first round D-line and DB, second round O-line. I think it'll be really interesting to see where our pick lands as well, because obviously there's another major question mark that a lot of people, I get it. They look at the defensive line and where it's at right now and the shape that it looks edge and interior wise. And then you look at the O-line and how that's aging as well. You look at the DBs and how that's aging. We did not extend Miles Sanders. And that becomes something that I think we're really going to have to talk about is there's some positions of need offensively that are going to have to be addressed. And we know how he's going to look their way throughout the draft. And as much as we want, like maybe what Ryan says, where we go D-line, DB, O-line, and we think that Howie might lean that way, he made the decision on a few positions to go away from them in extension talks and when negotiating at the table in the offseason. So I think there's going to be a lot of things that are very, very different. And I'll be very interested to see how things go this offseason, because there's a lot more question marks, in my opinion, than we think for this team. But we are set up for future success. Like you guys have alluded to, we got the 2 first-round picks. We have the salary cap going up. We have a lot of impending free agents. We got some cap space to work with. We got a lot of good foundational pieces. So this will be really interesting to see. But obviously, we do also have a game that we need to talk about this week. But I did want your guys' opinion on the Jeff McClain pieces. But before we move on to the game, Chris, of those 17 guys, who is the guy, Howie, you would pound the table Howie has to extend?
Of our free agents?
Yep.
Oh, man, that is a great question.
I got a couple of mine.
All right, Mitch, you go first. You go first.
Fire away, Mitch.
Gardner Johnson, the first one. I mean, come on. The guy leads the league in interceptions. You got to keep him, right? Now, I would not let Fletcher Cox stay. I think
he's done. Yeah.
He's got to go. I mean, he's not playing
he's
like he used to. He's just falling over. And Ndamukong Suh is going to be another one. I'm hesitant on him right now because of his age. But if he can be as a role piece, I'll keep him for the run stop. I'll keep him for like a role piece, veteran minimum or something like that. Livon Joseph could be another one for like 1 year. I don't know. Just like keep the D-line good. We need to run. We lost that against the Texans, against the Commanders. I mean, it looked bad. So we got to fix that going forward. I can see that with those two guys.
Well, and I would agree with you, Mitch, in saying like not all the needs are going to be addressed. Like we need to start an edge. We need to start in defensive lineman to go beside Jordan Davis, because Javon Hargrave is someone we haven't talked a whole lot about, but he is an impending free agent as well. What about the running back position? There are going to be ones that are filled with a 1 year prove it deal, or 1 year just get us to the next year, and we're going to address that need next season because we've addressed these needs this season. So I do agree with you that, I don't know. Ndamukong Suh, it feels like he's one of those guys who will only come back when he sees a championship opportunity. I don't think you will see him sign another contract in the offseason to come back and play an entire season with the team. But Linval Joseph, I believe Linval Joseph's 2 or 3 years younger than Sue. So he is somebody who may consider coming back for a year and saying, okay, if I'm playing 25, 30% of snaps, sure, I'll come back. I'll help you guys out. I'll be your fourth interior defensive lineman in the rotation or whatever. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, that Linval Joseph definitely on the top of the list. If you can get a guy that can rotate with Jordan Davis moving forward, that would be a really strong move. Because you look at kind of their depth at that position is not good. And you look at Hargrave, you look at Cox, and everyone on the decline there, free agents, they really need to add depth in that area. So Linval Joseph is there. And then we need to, like, in relation to the upcoming extension for Jalen Hurts, like, you got to be looking at team-friendly deals. As much as people don't like him, I've been okay with him. Marcus Epps on a very team-friendly kind of deal to add depth at safety spot would be okay with me. He's not hurt this team whatsoever. And then I look at TJ Edwards, if he can get him back, because linebacker's a low-key need for this team. I would like to spend the draft capital, fixing the defensive line and cornerback and interior, everything like that. But if you can bring back TJ, who has had kind of an up and down season, but for the most part, it's been way more positive than negative. He had a really good game last week. And when he's playing well, it's very much noticeable. So those are the three kind of guys. Definitely on the interior defensive line. Outside of that, Epps and TJ Edwards for me.
Yeah.
I love it because I think Marcus Epps isn't talked about enough, and I think TJ Edwards is talked about a lot. But I also think that he's not talked about for the main reason that he is such a good fit, such a perfect fit in this defense. But that all comes back to, would he be the same type of fit if Jonathan Gannon isn't in the picture? And that becomes a major question mark to me about TJ Edwards, because he was good but not great last year, good enough to earn himself, a short extension from Howie to say, okay, prove it to me again. And he has proven it in a specific scheme. But the question to me is going to be, can he be an all-around linebacker? He is up there right now as far as, like, I posted a tweet that John Gunod, a stats guy, posted that he's one of 3 linebackers right now with 95 plus tackles and 2+ sacks. He is an elite company with a lot of linebackers right now, but is that more the system, or is this TJ Edwards? Is this the TJ Edwards that we are going to know his name for the coming few seasons in Philadelphia? So this will be a lot more talk for the offseason. There's going to be so much amazing offseason talk that we get to have this offseason. Yeah, we do have a game this week, though. Yeah. We do have a game this week, though. So let's get to it. We got Sunday night against the Green Bay Packers, who, if LJ was on the show, we would be talking about how awestruck we are by how bad they've been, because we both had them in the Super Bowl in our final prediction show. And ultimately, they are looking nowhere near it. At best, they can finish 10-7, which in the NFC will probably get you in the playoffs, but that means they win out. So, and that to me right now, with the way that team has looked and now some injuries catching up to them, I don't think that that's something that's feasible. I think this is more of a 9-8 and 8-9 type of team, and they might be fighting for that final spot, especially with the way the Minnesota Vikings are completely rocking the NFC North right now. We can argue about the outcome of the Cowboys game and are they frauds or not. But the point is, they sit at the record they sit at and are owned in the NFC North right now. But let's look at the Packers offense. Obviously, we have Aaron Rodgers there. He's having one of his more down seasons. It has not been as good as he has hoped. I think he is missing Devontae Adams greatly. And while he will never admit it, while no Green Bay fan wants to admit it, they want to point to other things. I think there's a lot more discussion that needs to be had about missing Devontae Adams than anything. This offense as a whole is middle of the pack. When I was looking at it, they're 19th overall in yards. I think they were 14th in rushing, and they were 16th in passing or something like that. They're really literally a middle of the pack offense, and they are without Romeo Doubs this week, which I think is a big loss. I get it. Christian Watson's been the guy over the last couple of weeks. He's had an incredible couple of weeks, but without Romeo Doubs, that means a lot more attention can shift to Randall Cobb, can shift to Christian Watson, can shift to guys that maybe didn't have all that attention because Doubs was around. Mitch, I'll start with you. I mean, arguably the passing offense isn't great, but we have seen our Russian defense, and Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon are guys, very viable threats to be able to exploit. It was better last week, but still viable to exploit it because that was only 1 week.
Yeah. So when it comes to this run game, this run defense, I get nervous every single week. Every single week with what the Houston Texans and the Commanders did to us. So going up against these two guys, it's going to be a tough task. It's going to be a very tough task. But if Fletcher Cox can fix whatever problem's going on with him, if he can fix it, Linval Joseph, Dominican Sue can do the same things as they did last week, I'll feel more confident. I need to see them do it again against this running duo. And with Dobbs with the wide receiver out, it's going to go more towards the run game. It's going to go more towards the run, even though we stopped Derrick Henry and company to 99 total rushing yards the first time in like a month. Then we held a team under 100 rushing yards. So there is that.
Absolutely. I like that. What about you, Chris? I mean, when you look at this matchup that we have between the Green Bay Packers offense versus the Philadelphia Eagles defense, obviously there's a clear thing. There's a clear path that maybe the run could be an issue. But what do you think about, like, from a passing perspective? Christian Watson, he had a couple really good games. He had one really good game against Calvin Joseph as his primary corner in Dallas, who's pretty much a backup third, fourth option cornerback in Dallas. Injuries got to them. And then he faced Christian Fulton in Tennessee as his primary corner. And he actually had a pretty good, Christian Fulton's been decent, and he did fairly good against me. He had 3 touchdowns and 2 touchdowns. So he's 5 touchdowns over the last 2 games. He's become a primary target of Aaron Rodgers. What are your thoughts on Darius Slay's had some off games, but last week he seemed to get on track. Do you think that this secondary is going to be able to deal with Christian Watson, Allen Lazard, and Randall Cobb and really slow down Aaron Rodgers as a passer?
Yeah, I'm way more worried probably than you guys, because if there was one thing that Darius Slay has routinely struggled with, that is size. That is size on the outside. Christian Watson has that at 6'4". Lazard is a guy that's also 6'4", can play on the outside. But what I'm a little bit concerned with, and they've kind of got burned on this over the last 2 weeks, is Lazard on the interior, which kind of goes almost like what I want to see for the Eagles offense this week, which we'll get to in a little bit. But Lazard in the slot against guys like Josiah Scott. And we've seen teams have success against Josiah Scott in the slot. So I'm a little worried about their size and speed. You look at Randall Cobb, I believe, 24 catches, 330 yards. He lines up in the slot frequently. So I expect Darius Slay to be the guy that checks Christian Watson in this one. But, guys like Randall Cobb and guys like Lazard, they definitely pose a potential problem for this team. But at the end of the day, here's some stats for you. This Green Bay Packers offense, if they're trying to beat you with the pass, they will lose. In games that the Green Bay Packers have thrown more than they have run, they are 0-5 this season. In games where they have run more than pass, Aaron Rodgers' numbers are astronomically better, significantly better they have this season. And the blueprint, let's be honest, the blueprint is out on how to beat the Eagles. It is get manageable second and third downs and time of possession, keep that Eagles offense off the field. Sue, Joseph, Cox, Hargrave, those guys are going to have to be really on their game, just like we saw in the second half against last week against the Colts when they just shut them down completely and kind of forced them that offense into 3rd and longs, 2nd and longs again and again. So for me, it's not a big secret whatsoever. The Green Bay Packers are going to want to try and run the ball effectively. The biggest problem with that is, as good as Aaron Jones has been, A.J. Dillon has not been that great. And where they have also struggled is in the passing game. There's been a lot of drops. There's been just a lot of plays that are like negative plays. You see a lot of flat screens that don't really go anywhere. This Green Bay Packers offense has been really inept. When we talk about giveaways, they've got 15 giveaways this season. That is among the bottom in the NFL. 8 fumbles, 7 interceptions, a turnover margin of -4. That is 6th worst in the NFL. They've also got the most delay of game penalties on offense. They also have 20 drop passes this year. So top to bottom, they need to get if the Green Bay Packers are going to win this game, it's going to be by effectively running the football. So that's just my take.
No, and I like your take. I think you make some really good points. And I think what's also crazy, I go on playerprofiler.com and I see the receiver target separation is 2.14 yards, which is 9th among quarterbacks. So Aaron Rodgers is seeing some great target separation from these wide receivers, and you can tell with his willingness to heave the ball downfield. But at the end of the day, the unfortunate reality is that like you said, Chris, they're dropping passes, they're fumbling, their ball protection is really dreadful. And it's such a shame to see. Well, I mean, it's good for us this week because we don't want to have to worry about Aaron Rodgers and what he can do in the passing game. But it's a shame for Aaron Rodgers that the offense has turned this way. And those are some wild stats that Chris pointed out, that he's going to be right back. He was having some internet issues, but those are some crazy stats that he was pointing out, that they need to lean on the run game because they need to bring more guys into the box so that there's more of an openness downfield so that Aaron Rodgers can make those plays, because his completion percentage versus man is 54%, which ranks 32nd among quarterbacks. His completion percentage versus zone, 81.2%, number 1 among all quarterbacks. Oh. So if Jonathan Gannon wants to play that game where he's going to play off ball, he's going to play in zone coverages, he's going to play the 2 safeties deep and try and protect against the deep ball, there's a really good chance that Aaron Rodgers can win that battle because they're going to lean on the run game. And then when you start bringing your guys in, Aaron Rodgers is going to lean on the passing game and his ability to be able to make those plays happen. It's such a weird dynamic, this offense, based on all the stats that you see. No stats point to one way that obviously this offense should lean on the run, but then you look at like the completion percentage versus zone versus man, the giveaways, like it's so hard to tell where you lean with this Green Bay Packers offense, because it feels like they're just a cleaner football game away from being able to be the 10-7 team I was kind of mentioning a little bit earlier. We have a question. So Willie says, I have a question as a Cowboys fan. What do you think, or how will y'all fare against a team with a good run game and a good QB, because Hurts has not faced any good QBs yet? Mitch, I'll let you field this first, because listen, my biggest comment, and we've made the comment on this show, all 4 teams in the NFC East have bottom 10 schedules. At the start of the season, they had bottom 10 strength of schedules. Yeah. So you cannot sit there as a Cowboys fan and say our schedule was this much harder, or as a Giants fan say our schedule was this much harder. I think it actually went, the Giants had the easiest, the Eagles the second easiest, the Commanders the third easiest. I think the Cowboys are like 6th easiest at the start of the season. So no one can sit there and say I had the harder schedule. By strength of schedule, everyone had a really easy schedule. This division was bound to be the NFC beast this year, but we don't get to pick the schedule is the big thing. So what's your thoughts on this question, Mitch?
Honestly, I'm getting tired of this schedule comment every single day on Twitter. I get it DM'd. I get comments on my YouTube video, shorts, you name it. Just let it go, man. Just let it go. We just played a team that puts on a schedule. So the thing with the quarterbacks, though, with good quarterbacks, that goes to Jonathan Gannon in a way because he respects these quarterbacks, and he cannot do that against like Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, and stuff like that. We only sacked Heineke like what, 3 times? I mean, you can't do that. Matt Ryan, 3 or 2 times? I mean, come on. You got to be aggressive. You got to blitz. That's all I got to say about that. So
yeah, and Willie says I'm not saying that you have to play who's in front of you. We definitely have to play who is in front of you. And at the end of the day, my thing is this: it's like we're playing who's in front of us and we're winning, and that's the big thing to me. When it comes down to playing the big games, the last really big game we have for Jalen Hurts is that game against Tampa Bay, and we got ransacked. We got blown out of the house completely. And at the end of the day, for me, my biggest thing is what. He has become a lot better quarterback than that. And this offense looks a lot better than that offense that we had in that game. But when push comes to shove, we need to be in that position again. And Willie, I know as a Cowboys fan, you probably don't tune into this show very often, but me and LJ have talked about this topic a number of times, my co-host, and we've kind of talked about it as more of one of our biggest criticisms is we want to see him in this type of game. We want to see him backed into a corner and what he can do. He was backed into a corner against Indianapolis, and all we were able to do was go 17-16. We put up one more point than that team. You go up against a really good football team. You go up against the Buffalo Bills, for example, and they can score. You go up against the Kansas City Chiefs, they can score points. And if at the end of the day, you go up against one of those teams who doesn't average 15 points per game and they can put up 30 or 40 points against you, that's where we need to see Jalen Hurts backed up against that wall. And can he put 30 points up? Can he put 40 points up? Can he go pound for pound with them? We haven't seen that. And unfortunately, all we can do is play what's in front of us. But is it a concern of mine? Is it I don't like to look at it negatively. And is it a concern of mine? 100% it's a concern of mine. And we haven't had much of an opportunity to see it proven. The only game we've really seen it proven is against the Minnesota Vikings. So in the one game where he had to do it, he did it. But up against the top dogs, like throw in Buffalo, throw in Kansas City, it's tough to say because we got to be put in that situation. He's got to be put in that situation. And at this point, we can't be particularly certain that he can do it. But Willie, definitely it is a concern of mine. I don't know if you got any more to add on that, Mitch.
I think you nailed it right on the head. I was going to say the Minnesota Vikings, that was a primetime game. Kirk Cousins doesn't do well in primetime. I'm just saying that right there. But, hey, you nailed it on the head. We just play the people in front of us. I'm getting tired of it. Like, seriously, I am.
I'm going to shout out Derek here. He's a veteran, new viewer from Chicago, and he says, how's it going? I'm new to the channel. Welcome aboard. Thank you for your service, Derek. And yes, smash subscribe. Keep following us. Check us out. We love all of you. And then Willie adds one final thing. To be honest, I think the NFL set this up for an NFC East team to win it. All this because look at all our schedules. At the end of the day, that's not necessarily how the schedules work. It's all about wins and losses prior season. And in each season, obviously you play within your division X amount of times, and then you play a certain AFC division X amount of times. It's all worked out a specific way, and it's not the NFL has a way of doing it. It's set out a specific way, and this is just how it landed. We got a lot of really easy teams, and we got easy strength of schedules. Mitch, let's move over to the other side of the football. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles offense. Obviously, we've talked about the Philadelphia Eagles offense. Welcome back, Chris. We were just talking about strength of schedule and playing who's in front of us, and shouting out our new friend Derek, who's new to the channel. So welcome back. We're flipping over to the Philadelphia Eagles offense on this one. This is going to be an interesting one because the Green Bay Packers are not very good against the rush, but they are very good against the pass. So this is going to be very interesting because it's actually very similar for Philadelphia. They're not as great against the run, but they're pretty good, really good against the pass. So it's pretty much two not so great Russian defenses and 2 good passing defenses going one-on-one. So it's going to be very interesting to see how each team attacks us. Chris, since we missed you for the last 50 or like 10, 12 minutes, I'm going to go to you on this one.
It looks, hey,
Wait.
Doc Rivers over there. I think I'm sorry.
I just changed locations in my house. It seems to be much better now. My internet just dropped like a hat. I don't know. Do I sound okay?
You sound much better, Chris. You were good to go, and you sounded good. Even though you were frozen on the screen, you sounded phenomenal before you said I have no internet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you sounded great.
Great.
So let's start with that. Like we've seen, and last week we saw it. Jalen Hurts could not really lean on AJ Brown because one of the things we talked about with Stephon Gilmore, when put in a position up against a big time wide receiver, like we saw against Devontae Adams, whether you think it's pass interference or not, in a big time situation, he can step up, he can play you tight, he can make your day really difficult. And we saw that last week. So what happens this week if the passing attack can't be used? This offensive scheme over the last couple of weeks has not really leaned on Miles Sanders, has not really leaned on the passing attack like we would like to see. I mean, we did see Boston Scott run completely ridiculously 3 straight times last game for some reason. But what is it about Shane Steichen that he doesn't want it to be, and it should be a Miles Sanders game?
Yeah. So like you said, that's all signs point to this being a Miles Sanders kind of game. This week, going back to your point on the Packers pass defense, I will say if there was one matchup to look at, and I kind of touched on it earlier, is Darnell Savage in the slot has not been great. If there was anything we learned from the Eagles last week, it's the absence of Dallas Goedert was felt top to bottom. What that guy does as a safety blanket in those short yardage situations, in the middle of the field, 4th downs, in the RPOs, his ability to kind of make defenses guess wrong with Jalen Hurts in those RPOs is, for me, one of the biggest strengths of this Eagles offense. And just have Jalen Hurts use his legs or dump it down to Dallas Goedert for a 1st down. So we didn't really see any tight end step up last week. So I think what I would like to see, because we have seen the offense kind of sputtering as of late, is just a little bit of a more creative, more of a change of approach with this Eagles offense. Shane and I talked about it earlier this week. Maybe go away from the 12 personnel and maybe see some like 4 wide receiver sets, see some more pre-snap movement. See AJ Brown in the slot, taking advantage over a smaller guy like Darnell Savage, who's 5'11" and less than 200 pounds. Put some of our guys in positions to succeed. I think it's a waiting game at this point until Dallas Goedert comes back, because he's been arguably a top 3 tight end, arguably number 1 tight end in the NFL. That's how good he's been. So I don't expect anyone to kind of step up in his absence. So for me, I think the nuts and bolts of the Eagles offense, just let's see it change just a tad. Let's see a little bit more creativity. Let's try and get this Green Bay Packers defense guessing. The Eagles offense pretty much to a T has been a pretty simple offense up to this point in the season. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see kind of a schematic change where we really take advantage of those mismatches like AJ Brown in the slot and things like that.
I absolutely agree. I think like last week they tried to play as if they had Dallas Goedert, and they realized, and listen, the report came out that they're fine with Jack Stoll. They're good with moving forward with Jack Stoll, and I don't care. Jack Stoll he's a good blocker. He's a sufficient receiver, but he's not Dallas Goedert. He's not going to be, I think Dallas Goedert's 3rd in the NFL or top 5 for sure in the NFL in yards after the catch. Jack Stoll is not creating that much after the catch for you. you can't the prospect that you can continue to run your offense as if Jack Stoll or Grant Calcaterra or Tyree Jackson is Dallas Goedert is absolutely mind-numbing and is not going to work and is going to absolutely cost us football games. One of the guys that I would like to see more, you said I move AJ Brown into the slot. I'm perfectly content with Quez Watkins in the slot. I'm perfectly content with more usage of Quez Watkins. He's 8 of 8 for 122 yards and I think 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. He's been exceptional. Besides that absolutely horrendous fumble, which we wrapped him for it on this show for like 5 minutes a couple weeks back when we talked about the Commanders post-game show. We gave him a hard enough time. But besides that, he's been one of the better wide receivers over the last couple weeks with the ball in his hands and when targeted. I think he absolutely has to be a focal point of the offense, and he needs to be the guy that you have to get a lot more creative with because he can be the Dallas Goedert. No, not necessarily. He's not going to make people miss or drag people with him, but he's got speed. He can create after the catch. He can do a lot of the stuff you want from him, except he's not a blocker and he's not, 6'5", 270 pounds like Dallas Goedert is. So obviously you have to use him a lot more creatively, but he can do the things that Dallas Goedert could do. And that's why I continue to pick him as an impact player because there's so much focus on Devontae Smith. There's so much focus on there's constantly tons of focus on AJ Brown that I don't think it matters where you move AJ Brown. I think they will have to. I think Green Bay would move things around. They wouldn't leave Savage in the slot against AJ Brown, but they will likely leave Savage in the slot against Quez Watkins, and I think that's a massive mismatch that can be taken advantage of. Mitch, what are your thoughts on this offense versus the Green Bay Packers defense?
First off, can we give Miles Sanders the ball more in the first half? Like, is that a question? Can we please do that? Because whenever he runs the ball more in the first half, we get things going. We're a better team. We're one team. So we need Miles Sanders to get the ball more. And I like the idea of A.J. Brown in the slot. I honestly never even heard of that. So I honestly like that. He's actually a little over 200 yards away from hitting 1,000. So hopefully he can get that this game. That would be cool. But, run first, and that's basically it. Mismatch.
Absolutely. And I got to point out, I don't know what Kenneth Gainwell has done to be put in the doghouse with Shane Steichen, but there's no way you can tell me Boston Scott is better or more deserving of time on that field than Kenneth Gainwell. I'm sorry. If you're sitting there and you got Boston Scott as an impending free agent and you got Miles Sanders as an impending free agent and you got the only guy who's going to be back on that roster in that backfield next year for certain is Kenneth Gainwell, you got to start using that guy. You got to start finding ways to work him into your offense. I don't know what he's doing. And LJ talked about it last week. Why is Kenneth Gainwell not in the slot? Why can't he be a guy who eats into some of that Dallas Goedert role or trying to force that type of offense or play that we've seen with Dallas Goedert as part of the offense? I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Chris. I see you nodding. I'd love to get your opinion on what maybe you or what Shane might have seen that has put Kenneth Gainwell in this doghouse.
I thought, because I was a Kenny G guy, and I thought for sure he would have a huge leap forward in his development this year. But there's no real easy answer to that. He just hasn't been involved to the point where it's been Boston Scott late in the fourth quarter against the Colts getting multiple carries in clutch situations. Mike, that is exactly where I was going with this. Is this the week we finally see Trey Sermon? Nobody really knows about this guy. He really hasn't played much, been with the Eagles for long. But at least he's a short yardage guy that can give the Eagles a different flavor at running back. Like, what's the worst that could happen with Trey Sermon? That's kind of where I'm at this point.
I agree.
At this point, you're giving they're just guys at this point, man.
And I think that's like a big point in some of these situations. Ryan says, I'd rather see Sermon than Scott. 100%. If LJ was on the show right now, he'd be smiling ear to ear because he's been a strong proponent of get Boston Scott off this team. Why is he getting any opportunities? But the thing with me is we need to see what we got in some of these guys. Why not try Trey Sermon? He could be a guy you bring back next year. Why? What does it matter if Trey Sermon takes 2 or 3 of those touches that Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell are getting? What are they getting, like 5 or 6 touches a game? What difference does it make how you spread those touches out? And the couple of times we've seen Trey Sermon, he was explosive. He was decently effective in the like 3 or 4 touches he's had as a Philadelphia Eagle. And then same question to me comes up with Nakobe Dean. How much could it TJ Edwards is a dude. Kaiser White, to me, he's not the dude. He's a guy. He's one of those guys in that long list of 17 guys who likely isn't back next year. What's up with Nakobe Dean? Why can't we? What would it hurt to give him 10 to 15 snaps a game and see what he can do? Are you hiding something? Is there something we don't know about that injury? Did you draft a guy who there was major concerns about an injury, and the concerns are for real now that he's in camp, now that he's actually practicing week in and week out, that we're not seeing? Like, he's not even on special teams.
But that's interesting. But I don't think it's a medical, physical issue. I think it's a more mental issue for Nakobe Dean. Like, he really struggled in the preseason catching up to the speed of the NFL game, catching up to the speed of the Eagles playbook. And I agree. I was thinking about that a couple of weeks ago before Joseph. Like, could we be at the point where now is the time to kind of unleash Nakobe Dean? That the honest response there is we don't really have data to say like this would be a good decision to make. TJ Edwards,
but we don't have data to say it's not the right decision. Like, but how much could it hurt to give him 10 or 15 snaps? Like, we're not talking dramatic here. Like,
so my point is, like, real quick, is I think the issues with the Eagles' run defense is not so much a TJ Edwards versus Nakobe Dean issue. It's more of a schematic issue with Jonathan Gannon. Like, you'll see frequent, presentations from Gannon with light boxes when teams are clearly on running situations, running the football, and we're just not the Eagles defense is not in position to slow down any of those plays.
I think he just doesn't, like, on a first down, the odds of running, like, if you take that into your mind, the odds of running are so much higher, and he's playing every down like it's a passing down. And it's like, but why? Like, the analytics point towards something. Why is it always the same look when analytically you should be given a different look? And I agree with you. I think that's what's so frustrating for a lot of people with Jonathan Gannon.
And to give him credit, like, and I want to pile on Jonathan Gannon here. He has made adjustments over the last few weeks. We have seen, the bad of the bad when it comes to Jonathan Gannon. Like, the corner's playing way too far off the line, different things like that. But like last week, we saw a little more run blitzing and different things like that, which we routinely haven't seen from Jonathan Gannon. So that one game, I think it was Washington, when nothing was working, especially on third downs to slow down the Commanders. He blitzed like over 50% in the second half. We did see man coverage. It didn't matter. Darius Slay had his worst game of the season. And you got to wonder if it's as simple as Darius Slay and Josiah Scott just aren't on the same page. And now you have Darius Slay worrying about this guy over here, and now he's thinking rather than reacting. Is it that simple? So who knows? There's a lot of things in play. I think we underrated or underestimated the absence of Jordan Davis, and I'm really excited to see Sue and Joseph kind of really fix this, because the silver lining of the Colts game is if Sue and Joseph truly solve the Eagles' issues in run defense, arguably the biggest strength of this team has been their pass defense. They're among the best in the NFL in so many different statistics. And if you can make a team one-dimensional, and we have seen again and again these Eagles playmakers in the defensive backfield show up again and again, that really does well in the Eagles' favor moving forward.
I completely agree. You make great points there. And for certain, if Sue and Joseph, I mean, the fact that they were able to do what they did on such minimal snaps, I think that's huge. If they can start to take more away from Fletcher Cox and more away from Hargrave, and that's not to say that Hargrave and Cox don't deserve those snaps. Well, Cox doesn't. Hargrave definitely deserves the snaps right around where he's at, like 45 snaps a game. That's fine. But Cox, if you can peel him back some more and you can give these guys more opportunities, I think this defense just gets even better. And you saw it so much. Like Linval Joseph was used more in the run defense than Ndamukong. So I think he had 7 or 8 more snaps that were in run defense. You can tell when Linval Joseph was out there, there was a difference made. He ate gaps up massively. Like he took away 2 gaps by himself, which completely changes how a running back can see the field. Once 2 gaps are gone and you have to pick a different gap to go to, or if the gap was there, or if the gap you were supposed to hit was one of those ones Linval Joseph's in, it's a complete game changer. So I completely agree.
One of my favorite plays from last week was the play when Sue and Joseph came together on a sack, I think in the 3rd or 4th quarter. That was just all right. So like, look at this. The Eagles' 67.9% success rate against the run last week was the 2nd best mark for the Eagles this season. And on the 18 snaps with either Joseph or Sue, those 2 guys on the field, they allowed just 2.8 yards per carry. 2.8. That is like ridiculous considering
that's Jordan Davis numbers.
It's pretty close. So I agree, Phil. Like the Jordan Davis loss, it hurts. Get well soon. Can't wait to have you back. But that's more important than Nakobe Dean is getting that interior kind of fixed.
Yeah, because we've seen how he leans on the interior offensive and defensive lines, or the lines in general. At the end of the day, we've seen this team be able to work frustratingly but sufficiently without linebackers or without consistent linebacker play. But we cannot do well without good offensive line and defensive line play. That is just not in the playbook for either side of the football. But now we're here. We're at 55 minutes. Let's kind of wrap this up in a bow for everybody. Let me know. We'll start with you, Mitch. Give me your impact player for the Green Bay Packers. Someone you think could have a big game, offensively or defensively, and then give me a Philadelphia Eagles as well that you're really looking out for in this game.
All right. So can I give 2? Because I think it's a run game for the Packers.
Absolutely. Give 2.
I think it's going to be A.J. Dillon and God, I always forget the other guys. Aaron Jones, yeah. So it's going to be those 2 guys because, our run game has been exposed for the last couple of weeks. I know with Sue and Joseph coming, they did great last week, but can they hold it up again against these 2 guys? I don't know. And for the Eagles side, I got to go with, it's kind of tough. You know what? I'm going with Miles Sanders. Here. If he could get the ball, he could be effective as he was weeks ago. I mean, weeks ago, it's a Pro Bowl type of player. He's hitting the holes. He's hitting it right. He's going through the pathways, whatever you want to call it. I'm giving Miles Sanders, man.
And I would agree with you. I think Miles Sanders is a really good one. If you ask LJ, I've been wishing the Kenneth Gainwell game into existence. It hasn't happened. He did have the touchdown there a couple weeks back, and that was a game where he got to see a decent amount of touches, and we saw, he can be effective. He should be used. He should be the number 2 with Miles Sanders. So I won't say Kenneth Gainwell at this point until I see them have a willingness and trust in him. But I've been willing and wishing that Kenneth Gainwell game on for a while, and I really feel like this can be the game. But I just feel like Shane Steichen is lost in what to do with his running backs. I just don't think he understands how to get them going, and he's been so focused on other aspects of this offense. And the running game has kind of fell to the wayside, which was what was so vitally important in the earlier weeks, in the first 5-6 weeks, where we dominated time of possession. The offenses did not get on that field. And now we're seeing more 3 and outs than ever, more like 1 and 2 minute possessions. And that just isn't going to continue to work. So I would agree with you. I think you picked the running backs on the Green Bay side. I picked the running backs on the Eagles side all together, and Shane Steichen being able to work with them. I think Shane Steichen with them is like the guy and the people I'm looking at in Philadelphia, because this is I think they're the 7th worst against the run. They're allowing 135 yards to on the ground, and that's not even including like passing to the running backs. So there could be a lot of work for Kenneth Gainwell and Miles Sanders if they just get used right. And I hope that Shane Steichen will use them right. On the Green Bay side, I'm going to go with Jair Alexander. I think it's been proven that if you can shut down or take out, especially with Dallas Goedert out of the picture, if you can shut down a guy like A.J. Brown, or if you're on Devontae Smith, if you can lock those guys down and you can guarantee there's one corner who's locking that area of the field down for you, that changes the entire landscape of the Philadelphia Eagles offense and what we're able to do. So I think if Jair Alexander can do what they were doing last week in Indy with A.J. Brown and completely shutting him down and Gilmore shutting down that side of the field for Jalen Hurts, I think it could be a long night for Jalen Hurts, and I think it would force Steichen to lean on the running backs more. And I do think that he's going to have to lean that way anyways, but it's probably going to be largely because Jair Alexander is doing his job and doing it extremely effectively. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, if the Green Bay Packers, like I said earlier, have any chance of winning this game, it's Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones would be the player of the game here. The problem with that is probably one of the weakest parts of this Packers team is their interior offensive line. I'm looking at Elgton Jenkins, Josh Myers, right guard John Runyon. This entire Packers offensive line has battled injuries and like 20 different lineups, combinations, and it feels like the Eagles offensive line of ghost pass. You know what I mean? Like when there's so many injuries and it was just who's who every single week. That's kind of what the Packers have been dealing with. And I agree with the comment about watch for the screens, because the Packers have a ton of those plays that I alluded to earlier, especially to Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. The majority of their targets in the receiving game is behind the line of scrimmage. And I think that's where this Green Bay Packers offense has really struggled, especially to start the season, was because they have so much youth on the outside at receiver. They kind of expected Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon to be much more prominent roles as a receiver in this offense, and they've had so many drops. They have. You look at the numbers, like whether it's Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon, their numbers are way down when it comes to being a threat as a receiver in the backfield. So Aaron Jones for me is pretty easy. If the Packers offensive line can get that push, and Aaron Jones has a really good first half, you know, this team is pretty good when it comes to time of possession. I believe they're top 10 in the NFL, and they only have 4 wins. And the other area that has me a little bit concerned is this team also gives up the second fewest third down conversions per game in the league defensively. So this is not an elite defense by any means, but they're 8th best in the league at limiting third down conversions at 34.9%. And they give up the 5th fewest passing yards per game. So going with Mitch, I don't think A.J. Brown probably has a huge bounce back game in this season, like Phil says. Probably not in the cards, but who knows? It's the freaking NFL. Miles Sanders is way too easy of a pick, like you said. But for me, since Aaron Jones is my Packers pick, it's got to be Sue and Joseph for my Eagles pick. If they can limit the damage on those early downs, those run situations, and force the Packers to 2nd and long, 3rd and long, just like we saw in the second half of the Colts game, I think the Eagles have a great chance of getting out of this one with a W. I'm nervous about this game. Are we going to get into predictions after this?
Absolutely.
I'll
We're going to
save it
get
for
into
that.
predictions. Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon both have 3 drops, so they rank 7th among running backs. Aaron Jones's rate is a 6% rate. AJ Dillon's rate is an 11% drop rate, which is insane. The thing that scares me most about Jones, like you alluded to, he ranks the 9th with 5.2 true yards per carry. True yards per carry discounts runs of 10 plus yards. He has a 5.4 yards per carry in general if you want to incorporate those 10 plus yard runs, which definitely is tops in the league.
Dude.
AJ Dillon, far worse, just saying 3.9 and 4.0 ranks 43rd amongst running backs.
Yeah. Aaron Jones's average depth of target is negative 1.4 yards. That is the 3rd shortest among running backs. So the Eagles better be ready for that screen game because that ball will be coming out fast, and the Eagles better be ready to pounce.
Love it. So prediction time. Time to wrap this all up with a final prediction. Philadelphia Eagles 9-1 at the link up against the Green Bay Packers, who are 4-7. The Packers are 1-4 on the road. The Eagles are 4-1 at home. Mitch, give me your final score prediction here.
All right. So for me, I'm going 28 Eagles, 21 Packers. Jalen Hurts, man. Jalen Hurts. What? That was yours?
I'm this close.
What is yours?
My prediction is 27-23 Eagles.
Oh my God. It's like right
I like
there.
it. Phil's got 32-24 for the Eagles. I'm very similar to you guys. I think I'm going 24-20 for the Eagles. I'm a little bit lower. I think that the defense, every time I say I think that the defenses are going to have decent games, those are the games where both teams end up pumping out like 30 points and it's insane the scoring. But I got 24-20 from the Philadelphia Eagles, moving to 10-1. This was awesome, guys. Thank you so much for coming on and stepping up in the absence of LJ. LJ is going to be back on Tuesday night. We are going to be reacting and breaking down this game, and hopefully it is a W. The Philadelphia Eagles enter this game with a complete clean bill of health for the players who are healthy. Obviously, we're missing the guys who are on the IR. We can't help that. Well, the Green Bay Packers, Bakhtiari questionable. Romeo Doubs is out. Backup tackle guard Sean Ryan is suspended, and Devondre Campbell, the linebacker, is doubtful. So we could have some things playing into our favor on that side, on the injury side. But and Robert has 32-24 for the Eagles, and Willie has 28-21 for Philly as well. So we got all our commenters as well as everybody on screen has Philadelphia winning not tonight, tomorrow night.
Like I'm nervous about this game. I'm kind of nervous about this game.
The last 3 games, have they given us any reason not to be nervous about
next
week?
Like if there's a quarterback that can just get rid of the ball fast, get the ball to the Packers slot receivers, expose some of those mismatches, and kind of cement a ground game, this could be it. I'm a little worried about this one.
And like you said, there's a lot of drops and some inconsistency with ball security, and all it takes is, if this is a game they turn that around, they can drop 30 or 40 on us.
And this is basically like win or go home for the Packers. Like this is it for them. So this is a huge game for Green Bay.
I think 9-8 ends up being the final team, like in the wild card, that gets in. But those guys there's teams that own the tiebreakers over Green Bay with their play.
You know what's funny? People are telling me that all the NFC East teams can make it playoffs this year. Can you imagine that? Like Jalen has the Eagles won.
I think it's likely. I think Washington's absolutely trending up.
I think they can do it. Washington can do it.
How ironic! As soon as Carson Wentz is out of the picture, we talked about that on this show. Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz are such similar quarterbacks. stylistically, I feel that you just got like a more expensive Taylor Heineke, where I think Taylor Heineke last year had a good grasp on the team, a good grasp on the offense, good control of the game, and was giving them a chance. And Carson Wentz was not giving them a chance. And it's all coming to fruition and all proven with the fact that Carson Wentz is now sitting out and Heineke's leading the charge to, as you guys alluded to, a potential playoff run for the fourth place team in the NFC East.
Yeah. I think this game comes down to getting pressure on Rodgers. That is absolutely critical. Like, he's not been the same quarterback. There's a lot of different things about this Green Bay offense, but the one difference for me, at least, is Aaron Rodgers under pressure. You look at Rodgers; he's 17th under pressure with a passer rating of 70.5. Where years past he's been absolutely dynamic against the blitz. This guy, of 38 quarterbacks with at least 35 under pressure dropbacks, he ranks 28th with a completion percentage of 45% and 25th in yards per attempt at 5.7. And under pressure, he was only thrown 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. So just as much as I said Sue and Joseph are my player of the game, it's got to be Josh Sweat. It's got to be Brandon Graham consistently. Hassan Reddick, of course. That's what sucked about our pass rush, though, is it hasn't been consistent. Yes, we have a decent amount of pressures. Yes, we've been getting some quarterback hits, but translating into sacks and translating into giving that quarterback a tough day, it just hasn't happened consistently enough. Robert Quinn, where you at, man?
You know about Robert Quinn? He has not had a sack in the last 11 games. I think it was 1 sack or something. People comparing him to Ryan Kerrigan. Like,
yeah, he is Ryan Kerrigan. He sucks, man.
Oh, man, that just hurts to say about him. Oh, man. But this is it, ladies and gentlemen. As always, thank you so much, Chris, at Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Anything you want to add before we say farewell?
Lots of content coming over the next 24 hours. I've got my running backs and cornerback rankings for the 2023 NFL draft videos. They've been done. I just been lazy over the last couple of days with Thanksgiving. I literally had another dinner tonight. It's the turkey's fault, not my fault. And then, of course, we have pregame, halftime, postgame tomorrow. We're also going to be double dipping with Sixers postgame as well tomorrow night. We have a new co-host for Sixers postgame, and then he'll have his debut tomorrow night, so that'll be really fun. That's about it. Party on Broad will be on Monday night with my man Rob. Just breaking down the Eagles game as always, and just anything NFL draft. Lots and lots of content coming with that.
I love it. And definitely follow the Painted Lines because we are going to be busy as the season winds down. When the season ends, you think things are going to get quiet? Absolutely not over at the Painted Lines. We'll definitely have lots going on. Mitch, at Mitchkovsky, anything you want to say to the people?
So, first off, you can follow me on Hardcore Sports Network. We're doing a Survivor Series watch party in 20 minutes. So I got to eat dinner and get ready for that. But, hey, Michigan, I am happy. So freaking happy still. Is Blake Corum on your running back list? He better be.
He's a day 2 guy for me. Day 2.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought it would be. I'm kidding.
No. I mean, I was on Mark's show today on his radio show raving about the running back class. It is arguably one of the deeper classes in this draft. The running back class this year is stacked. And if you guys have a few seconds tonight to go on YouTube or research whatever, look up Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA. If you're looking for a short yardage, big third down back for the Eagles next year, day 2 guy, Zach Charbonnet is your man. He doesn't have breakaway speed, but he's a guy that I'm absolutely in love with. And you're going to be hearing a ton about him from me over the next 5 months. Zach Charbonnet, UCLA. Absolute stud. He is a future Philadelphia Eagle. Can lock it in.
No, Blake Corum, lock it in.
No, he's too small. He's too small.
I want Blake Corum, please.
It's gonna be
I like
a
it.
huge off season, and I agree with with one returning running back next year. It'll be very interesting to see what Howie does as far as paying or drafting these guys. Mitch, good luck with your Survivor Series show. We're wrapping things up just in time. If you're a big WWE fan, go over and watch Survivor Series with those guys over at the Hardcore Sports Network. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you rate, review, like, subscribe wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. Of course, follow EOP Edge of Philly Sports. Follow the Painted Lines. They're on Facebook. They're on Twitter. They're on YouTube. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And fly, Eagles, fly.
You want Philly food?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sanders patiently running. Sanders good cut. And another block. Sanders still going inside the 40.